ocean currents and their impact on global climate. So twice they have asked ocean currents and fishing resources. Okay, 2022 में last year पूछा है and 2015 में भी पूछा है. Ocean currents and fishing से they have asked. Okay, so I just thought कि आपके notes में ये होना चाहिए अलग से, the ocean currents and their impact on the climates. Because this is not a difficult question. Maybe the challenge will be how will you write this. अब देखो इस question में there are two parts. जब ये आंसर लिखो, make sure that you have not missed this one. Account of ocean currents. My gut feeling कि most of you would jump directly into how does it impact global climate. और 15 मार्क का आंसर है, you cannot write too much on this, but इसको ignore नहीं करना है. Okay, it's a given account of ocean currents and their impact on global climate. So if I was writing the answer, I would have probably given, okay, maybe 30-35% weightage to this, and this would definitely have maybe a bit more of weightage. Okay, but इसको आप ignore नहीं कर सकते. So always be mindful of that. हर question का एक दो part होगा, keywords होंगे, don't ignore it. See, if I write about the first part, so I'm quickly structuring it for you. First part में you can start with the introduction itself. That ocean currents are one type of ocean circulations of bands of rapid moving waters on the coast. What are ocean currents? They are one type of ocean circulation. The bands of rapid moving waters along the coast. Okay, that's one point. The second point is the currents are cold current or they are warm current, depending on the locations along the coast. So east coast of continents, they are warm currents. The west coast of continents, they are cold currents. East coast of continents, they are warm currents. And the west coast of continents, they are cold currents. And associated with upwelling. Third, there are warm currents. There are warm currents also along the equator. So we have north equatorial current and south equatorial current. यहाँ पे in fact I'll suggest cold current कहकर, okay, you can say east coast warm current. Give two names. Mention Gulf Stream along the US and Kuroshio along the Japanese coast. So warm current Gulf Stream along the US coast and Kuroshio Japan coast. वैसे cold currents में, okay, Benguela coast, you have got cold currents of Africa, and you have got the Peru current along the Peru coast of South America. There are warm currents along the equator. Third is there are also polar currents, which are cold currents from the poles because of melting of ice and snow of the polar regions. एकदम short में लिखना है. The polar current क्या होता है? What is warm current of equator? ठीक है? अच्छा, इसके बाद you can always mention that the currents are fundamentally because of the winds. The currents are fundamentally because of the winds, but salinity variations and density of water, density differences and density differences of the waters can also create ocean currents. If you can spare, maybe draw a representative diagram of the world. So this is equatorial current, warm current, cold current. This is the polar current, warm current, cold current, the polar current, and you can mention the west wind drift. That's all. A brief account है ना. You cannot write more than this. In answer जो पूरा मिला के answer ही बनता है आपका 15 mark का. So about half or the first 3/4 of a page. This is what you have to learn. Example भी दे दिया आपको, बता भी दिया, reason भी दे दिया. You cannot write more than this. Give an account of the ocean currents. So I think this was one challenge कि ocean currents का एक brief विस्तार दीजिए. Give an account of the ocean currents of the world. Okay, with a hypothetical ocean depicted. The second part of the answer was, okay, tell us what are the consequences of the currents. Consequence of currents. Now, consequences mein, there are 4 types of consequences. One is consequences in terms of the climate. Consequences related to resources. In fact, I would have started with consequences in terms of ocean temperature anomalies. Ocean temperature anomalies, isko pehle rakho. Second is climates in terms of impacting the coastal areas. Talk about resources. Okay, and the fourth you could say is the miscellaneous. What the consequence of the oceans currents? So ocean anomalies. So wherever we have cold currents, we have got cold waters. Wherever warm currents, we have got warm waters. And this cold warm waters ke mixing ke wajah se, we can have fogs also. Newfoundland fogs. सिखाने का main idea है आप आंसर लिखोगे कैसे. You know the points. लिखना आपको 1.5 पेज maximum 2 पेज में. Climatic impact. So wherever we have got cold currents, the area becomes arid. Okay, they become drier. Wherever we have warm currents, this results in rainfall. It results in low pressure conditions. So arid, bata dena, Namib Desert is arid, Atacama is arid. Warm currents and the rainfall that they cause. You can talk about the impact of warm currents along the Gulf Stream coast of US. It is humid conditions. You can talk about the impact of this. Kuroshio, Japan becomes humid in the lower latitudes. What does the currents do? Resources. Okay. So the currents, the cold currents are associated with upwelling. Bataya aapko maine. If upwelling, there is nutrients. If upwelling, the area will be fishing zones. Because of upwelling, areas of high biodiversity. Miscellaneous mein, you can add how ocean currents are part of the atmosphere-ocean interactions. Change in the currents are related to change in the climatic circulations. They are part of the atmospheric ocean interactions. If there are changes in the ocean currents, this can impact atmospheric circulations, such as the reversal of the Walker cell, El Nino. There is a relationship of Somali current with the monsoons of India. Strong Somali current is good monsoon rainfall. Miscellaneous mein, the ocean currents also influence navigation routes. जो North Atlantic का navigation route है, that uses the Gulf streams. The ships going from the US towards, say, Europe, they use the Gulf Stream ka route. Conclusion can be that global warming, change of ocean temperatures are impacting ocean circulations. So what are ocean currents ka ek account do, and tell us how they impact the climate in different parts of the world. So draw maybe a small map or some small sketch. मैं बताया आपको मैंने ये सब जो maps बताया मैंने पहले आपके. You can use those maps. You can use this map itself to show how they impact the currents, the climate. So cold current, dry conditions, cold current, dry conditions. You can add warm current and humid conditions here. Kuroshio में warm current, humid conditions here. यहाँ पर Somali current चलता है. It impacts Indian monsoons.